SparkMES, an MES accelerator for ignition.
Hi, everybody. Excited to have you here with us to dive into the kitting and shipping packages of SparkMES. My name is Ellie Allen Bathe, and I'm a content marketing manager here at Flexware. Before we get started with today's webinar, just a couple quick housekeeping notes. First, if you have any questions throughout today's presentation, feel free to drop those in the questions tab of the toolbar. We'll answer those throughout today's webinar. And also, today's session is being recorded. We'll make that recording available to you shortly after we wrap up today. Now that that's out of the way, I'd like to introduce today's speaker. I'm joined today by Eric Moorman. Eric is an architect of SparkMES, and he's been with Flexware for just over 7 years. Eric, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellie. And thanks for joining us, everybody, to this kind of installation in the series we've been going through for the last, I don't know, probably a little bit over almost a year now, going through all of the different SparkMES packages and just trying to give the overview of each of them. Today, we're actually going to give you a little bit more than usual, right? Usually we just do one package, but today we're actually going to cover two packages over this webinar. They're a little bit smaller packages, so just kind of give you an overview of both at once. So this will be the last set in the series of just doing the initial overviews here. We've kind of covered a lot of the different packages that we're doing. So first, we're going to do it this way. First, we're going to talk about the kitting package. So what is kitting? So the kitting package has a little bit of a niche use case inside of SparkMES focused around two different categories. The first is for staging inventory for production. So sometimes you may want to make sure that the inventory that you're actually going to use to produce whatever your finished assembly is or your batch, you want to make sure that you have that inventory kind of set aside and like delegated for that specific goal so that you don't get halfway through the process and then you realize you don't have inventory and then your process stops, right? This is where kitting comes into play, where you actually can specify parts to be kitted. And then when you start orders, we make sure that that inventory gets staged before you actually start the order. And we'll show that here in a second. The other part of the kitting package, though, is that in some industries, it's not uncommon for you to have to produce kits to order, right? So these aren't necessarily finished goods, although they can be, but maybe you have to like send out a kit of supplies to a different site or something like that, or maybe to a customer, right? So instead of sending them like a full, I don't know, like instead of sending them like a full wagon, maybe you're sending them like a kit of the different parts it takes to build the wagon, right? That is something that kitting can be used to receive a kitting order and then take that kitting order and produce that and then be shipped out through our shipping package, right? So those are kind of the two different ways that kits can be used, but the overall idea is you're building these kits of parts, which is really just a box. You're putting all the parts inside of a box probably that you're ready to then go do something with. So given that, why may you want to use the kitting package? There's a couple different reasons. The biggest one, I think, is that you want to ensure that all your inventory is available. We kind of just talked about that, but making sure that all the inventory is there, reserved, and is going to be there for when you're actually doing the consumptions. You'll also see in a second, too, this can also help out with requiring the actual operators that are doing the work to have to do less scans because we can use that kitting information to actually be able to know what parts we're consuming rather than them having to scan it while they're in line. So also you may have inventory that has to travel with the order. So instead of consuming from a specific location, you're going to make sure that this kit is traveling through the different stations in the process with the actual parts that you're producing. And then lastly, we talked about this, but I need to send an ad hoc kit to a customer. If you have a process or a subset of your work that does that, this is a package that could be useful for you. So we'll talk about kitting first, but the next thing we'll talk about, just to kind of set the stage for both here, is the shipping package. So what does the shipping package cover? And it may seem a little bit strange to even have a shipping in an MES. That's traditionally something that's a little bit more ERP focused. But what the shipping package is really focused around is being able to create and track shipping orders and then track the materials that go with those. So what we would do is we'd be able to, through the shipping package, you'll see that today I will create a shipping order inside the system. We could also receive that from an ERP or something if we needed to. And then I will be able to go in and with that shipping order, it'll say, hey, what parts do I need to actually ship? Now, then the part that we'd be doing in the shipping package is we will be taking that item list that we have, and then going ahead and scanning actual parts from inventory into that shipping order, and then assigning that to a customer, right? And then once we complete that, it'll actually remove those parts from inventory to get our inventory state up to date and mark those as shipped out the door and the shipping order as complete. And this is really good for one of two reasons, right? One is that it gives you kind of a front end for it, right? Where you want to have it all be in one system, so you don't have to go to your ERP to do the shipping. But the other part is it actually keeps your inventory state up to date inside the MES, especially if you're using your inventory package. So why may you want to use the shipping package? First is I want to know what inventory has been sent to which customer. Um, we kind of talked about it already. We're getting a shipping order, you can scan the parts against it. I think this next one's a big one too, is that we have, so you think about it, especially if you're using our track and trace package, you have all of the genealogy data of what it took to produce an assembly. Well, the shipping package makes it very easy for us to say, hey, we shipped this assembly to this customer. But then not only that, you can then look back and say, oh, what are all the parts we've ever sent to this customer? And then what's their associated genealogy data? What's like a temperature they had or something like that? This is the kind of like data you get married together through something like this. And then the other reason, kind of similar to when we talked about the inventory workstation, or the inventory package, is that you maybe want it to be a new front end for performing shipping actions. So instead of using your ERP's interface, we could have it to where you're using the ignition or the SparkMES interface that would transact with the ERP. So with that overview, let's go ahead and actually leave the PowerPoint and hop into some actual demos of the features. So back into our SparkMES demo environment where we've been running all these different webinars. And first I'm going to start off by showing some of the kitting package stuff. So first, there's how does kitting tie into traceability to allow us to have that tracking of kits and tracking of consumptions through the kits for the actual kitted parts. So to do that, if you remember from the track and trace video, and here I can create my routes, and a big part of creating my processes is configuring a BOM for it. Well, one thing I kind of glazed over the last time when we were going through this is that when I'm creating BOM parts inside of my BOM, I can choose to mark them as kitted. And so denoting this and marking them as kitted actually tells the system that, hey, when we generate a production order for this process, we need to automatically kick off a kitting order that'll call for this part to be kitted. And you'll see if I look in this process, which is the one I'm going to be using today, I'm consuming one stick of butter, I guess, right? And I have that marked as kitted. And I also have some eggs, 3 eggs that I want to have kitted as well. Now you don't have to mark all your parts in a BOM as kitted. You can mark a subset of them if you want to. Maybe you have some materials that are point of use and some are not. They're going to be traveling along with them. That's perfectly fine. Whatever you mark as kitted will then be actually included in the kitting order. So the next part of this, though, is that I can do more than just know that I need to kit them, but I can also reference the kitted parts from my route when I'm doing consumptions. So if I go into an actual operation here, and I go to materials, and I go to here, and I'm configuring my consumptions here. When I configure my consumption, I can set in the lot location to say what lot or what part that I'm consuming so I can know which one I'm actually consuming from. I have this option to set from kit since I have the kitting package. And what this is going to do, as opposed to scanning it from a device or requiring the operator to scan it in, which is normally what they would have to do, right? The operator or the device would be sending us that serial number or lot number. Now we already know what's been kitted through the kitting process, which I'll show in a second. And so we can just say that, oh yeah, that's the part that we want to reference, and we don't need the operator to tell us any of that. So it happens headlessly through the track and trace system. So, and I did the same thing for the eggs too, right? I just marked them as from kit. So this is kind of how this can play with track and trace to give us this sort of like have kits that flow along with the parts. So since I have this process configured this way, now if I hop over to production tracking workstation, I'm going to follow some of the same flows that we did in the track and trace video to kind of actually create an order for this process that I just made. And we'll kind of see how it makes a kitting order and how I would execute that kitting order and make sure that parts are getting associated with that kit. So let's do that. First, I'm going to create an order. So I'm on the work order screen. Now, again, one thing I mentioned in the track and trace video, right? This order could also be coming from the ERP. But in this case, I'm just going to create it. So I'm going to call this 225 kitting order. Okay. And we're going to maybe schedule it for today. We're just going to do one part to keep it simple. And we're going to use our kitting process, which we added. And I'm going to give it a serial number here. Perfect. So here's our order that we made. I'm going to go ahead and confirm that. And there's our order there. And now to actually get this ready to go and to start it ready to run and generate the kitting order, what we need to do is just mark this as active. So I'm going to go ahead and activate the order. Bam. All right, now it's active. So what this did in the background, you don't really see it here, but what it actually did is it actually generated a kitting order for us. And now whenever an operator's at the kitting workstation, they would see that kind of come up and they could go ahead and execute that. So to kind of be now the kitting person, so now I'm switching kind of personas over to the person like an inventory personnel that's like trying to actually do the kitting and generate the kits. They would have this screen open right here. And from this screen, they would see this kitting order show up here. And in this case, the kitting order, when we're auto-generating kitting orders, we're just giving it the same name by default as the product order. So here's my kitting order. And if I click on that, you can see that this is calling for one kit to be created. Now, there's a lot of configurations for how you can decide what kits you want to have made. And it all just depends on your system configuration. So maybe like in this case, I believe the way I have it set up is I'm generating one kit per station that it's going to be consumed at. So this would be the model that, let's say I have a process that runs over 3 stations and I want to have, these 5 parts get consumed at station 1, these 3 get consumed at station 2, and so on and so forth. And I want to generate a kit for each station. Then that's kind of what the system set up here, I think, right now to do. I just had one station in my flow, so that's why I only have one. But you can also have it set up in other configurations too, right? Maybe you want to just have one overall kit that it's generating. That's certainly something we can do as well. So with this kit, so I have a station I'm supposed to be sending this kit to, and now I have these 2 parts. So if you remember, I had my eggs and 3 eggs. You can see down here how much quantity I have left to send or to submit to the kit. And then I also have this locate lot that I need, this stick of butter that I need to do of 1. So now what I need to do is I need to start scanning the actual parts. So I'd be scanning the box of parts that I'm pulling these components out of and putting them into this actual kit. So the way I would do that to actually scan the lot of butter that I'm trying to get material out of, I would just click this select lot location. And then in here, I could either scan into this dropdown the lot number that I want, or this is also helping me out by showing me all of the different inventory that we know of in the system that contains butter, as well as the specific quantities that are stored in that right now. So I can say that I want to consume mine from this lot right here. And then I'm going to say the quantity I want to consume into this kit, which for me, I'm just going to consume 1. And then when I hit enter, you'll see that it checked it off, marked it as good, because I actually had fulfilled the quantity of it. So now I can do the same thing for eggs. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to choose maybe this lot right here. And maybe I'm only going to take 2 out of this lot. So if I hit 2, you'll see that that succeeded. It added it, and you'll see my quantity went down to 1 that I still need. And so I could go in here and maybe choose a different lot. And for this one, I'll just do 1. And there we go. So that actually will submit the kit and like actually have the kit. We've now fulfilled all the materials. Everything's checked off. And to actually mark this kit as completed, this specific order is completed, I can just click this guy here, and that'll complete the kitting order. And now what this would do at this point is it would have moved that kit into inventory. And maybe I can go find it here in the inventory package. But it would have release that order, release this production order, just now run on the line. So I'm not going to get into the running of orders. If you want to know more of that, you can go back to the track and trace video. But it would have actually let that go. So if I go look at this order though, it would have produced into inventory. And so I could go, I think it would be something like this is the lot number. Oh, sorry. Got to refresh. Yeah, 225 kitting order. You can see that I put 4 parts in it. And if I edit this lot, you can see which materials which lots I actually put into it. Like those materials came from. So this would be my kit that I can see in inventory, and I can move it around and all that fun stuff if I need to, and ship it out at the end of the day if I wanted to. So, and really that's what the kitting package is doing. Again, just to recap there, we took a configured process that had kitted parts and a BOM that called for kitted parts. We created an order against that process. And when we created that order, it then generated a kitting order for us that we could then go in and scan specific parts into the kit. And then once that kit was completed, we could see the kit in inventory, and we would also be able to run that production order and consume parts from the kit as that order is running down the line. So, right. So with that, now I think we're going to take this to the next step, and we're going to start talking about the next package, which is the shipping package. So just as a reminder for the shipping package is focused around taking materials from inventory that we already have and actually shipping those out the door. So associating them with a given shipping order, and then shipping them to a specific customer, and then thus removing them from inventory. So let's do that. So I'm going to hop over to the shipping workstation now. And in the shipping workstation, pretty simple. There's just 2 different screens that are in this workstation. The first is to create shipping orders. So I'm going to go to the create shipping order screen. And to this screen, this is where we can actually create a shipping order. And we could also fill it out from here, but this is where we can actually create a shipping order and call for what materials are actually going to be included in that order. So the way the screen works, we auto-generate a shipping order. So we automatically are generating like an ID or a number for the order. This formula we're using can be customized depending on what your guys' standards actually are. And then I have to choose a customer that I want to actually ship this to. I only have 1 customer configured in this system right now. It's just my demo customer, but if you had multiple customers, you would have all those options. So I'm going to choose demo here. And then I can give it a tracking number. So this is just like another identifier you can use to track it. It means different things to different people, but it's just like an identifier we track with it. So I know a lot of people use it for like when they ship it out. This is like what the number is for it, like the actual shipment, so they can track it, whatever it may be. But now we have to start adding parts, right? So we have the order, but we don't actually know what we need to ship, like what the actual part numbers or materials that this customer is really wanting. So to do that, there's a couple ways we can do it. One is I could do this. So we have this import feature that we could import a CSV to actually populate this all for us. So maybe we don't have like connectivity to pull it in automatically, but you have this little like you're getting like an Excel document or something. We could import that into the system, or I could just go ahead and do it manually, and I can go ahead and just hit plus to add a line item. Now on this line item, I have to choose what part that I want to actually ship. So maybe I'll go ahead and ship some eggs, and maybe we'll do 5 eggs. And you can see here, this is the required quantity, and so far we've scanned 0 quantity against it. And then maybe I'll also say I want to ship some, I don't know, what else do we have inventory for? We'll do buttercream icing, sure. Buttercream icing, and we'll maybe just send 1 of those. And we could have lots of line items in here. We could keep adding lines if we want to. For this demo, I'm going to keep it simple. Just have 2. And this is just defining the order. Now, you could also from this screen, maybe you want it to be a 1-step process. You'll see over here we have scan. So we could actually scan the materials in for this and then go ahead and ship it from the screen to kind of have like a 1-stop shop for doing all this. But I'm not going to treat it like that just because the more typical workflow would be that 1 person would be actually creating the shipping orders, and then probably an operator would be going through and then actually fulfilling them. So I'm going to show that workflow here. So here I've generated my shipping order, part number, quantity, part number, quantity. I'm going to go ahead and hit create, and that's going to create the shipping order in our system. And that'll also generate this Excel file that you could, as my Excel opens here very quickly. And so this Excel file is something that you could hand off to a person that was going to maybe go pick the materials or something, that would tell them, you know, what the sales order number was, what the part numbers were, what the quantity, basically everything we just talked about. It would just be giving that off here for them to go ahead and find those materials if they wanted to. All right, so we created a shipping order. That's great. Now we're swapping over to where we can actually execute the shipping orders. And so this would be the screen that maybe your operator that's actually doing the shipping, actually like receiving the orders and like scanning those parts against the order and then shipping those out the door. This is where they would be, the screen they would be using. And so in this table, I can see all the shipping orders that I am wanting to use, that I can run. And you'll see that I have this one that's created up here. This is the one that we actually just made. So if I click on the shipping order here, I can go ahead and hit edit. And this will actually bring up the same screen that we just had, but now I can go in and I can actually start scanning materials against the shipping order. So let's do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit scan. All right, so what this screen here is going to do, it's gonna be kind of similar to how the kitting screen worked, but we're gonna show here the parts remaining. So we need to scan 5 more parts. The overall required quantity is 5. And just reminding us that the part number that we are trying to scan right now are eggs. Then on the lot, I can go in and I can choose which lot that I actually want to consume from. I could also just scan the lot number if I wanted to. Just to make sure that I'm going to choose a lot that has the inventory I need here. We'll maybe use this one. So this one has a bunch of numbers at the end. So we'll do this one right here. If this was a serialized, if this lot had serialized components in it, I could use this drop down to choose one of the serials from it to actually ship. So if you have serialized components, you can choose which individual one you're actually sending. And then I can choose a quantity I want to ship from this lot. So maybe I'll just do 3. Again, same way as kitting, we don't have to send all of them from one lot if we don't want to. So maybe I'll send 3 here. I'll go ahead and add. And that did something strange. That was cool. Do this. And let me do that. Okay, that was funky. And then we got 2 there. So now I've shipped 2 there. And let me find another lot that I want to use. Maybe we'll do this 376 one. That one right there. And I'll go ahead and send the other 3 from there. So there we go. And you saw as I was kind of doing that, we added the quantity here. So this lot has 2. This lot has 3. You saw the quantity, the parts remaining going down as I was scanning individual components into here. If I wanted to change what was staged for shipping for some reason, I could always go and X out these and then just scan a new lot. But I'm not really gonna do that right now. So with that, I'm gonna hit save, and you'll see that when I saved, my scan quantity for the eggs went up to 5. And so I can see that I've scanned all the parts I need for this one. All right, so let's go and do the same thing for the buttercream icing. So I have 1 required quantity, and I currently have nothing scanned, so I need to scan some parts for that. So I'm gonna go to scan. I'm gonna choose one of these lots. Maybe I'll just choose that one. Set my quantity to 1. So again, I only need 1 part, so I'm only gonna scan 1 in. And if I add, it'll add that line item in. And then I can go ahead and hit save. And that will now fulfill my order. So I have all of the quantities I needed. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say fulfilled. All of the parts I'm showing here, right? They're still sitting in inventory. Nothing's really there's nothing, they've not been removed from inventory yet. They're just assigned to this order now at this point. And it's not until I actually ship this that they would actually be removed from inventory. So what I can do now, I could either save this order if I want to, but I'm actually going to go and ship this order. So I have all this good. I'm ready to actually send it out the door. So I'm gonna hit ship. Yep. And that went ahead and shipped it. And again, this downloads for me an Excel file. It's the same Excel file before, but now it gives information about what actual materials were sent against the shipping order. So I kind of can have this like receipt I can maybe send with it if I want to, or I can have it something I'm keeping on my records to actually know what I shipped in like a paper trail. Now, none of that is required. We can change how things ship or any of that fun, or what the format of what's printed works is, but in this case, we're just printing out a simple Excel file. Yeah, I guess the only thing I really didn't show here, so you see our order went to shipped, which is cool. So it's now completed. I could always go back in if I wanted to later and hit this little view icon, and I can see the materials that were actually shipped against this order. So you have the like historical record of all the data, which is cool. Yeah, and that's really what we're looking at here. So just to recap that, so we got a shipping order. We created a shipping order. We defined what materials that we actually wanted to have sent out the door and to what customer we're sending that information to. And then we sent that order down. When we created the order, then the person on the floor that would receive the shipping order show up. They would click on it, and they would then actually scan the actual materials from inventory against the order, and then eventually ship it out the door, which would then backflush to our inventory workstation and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that's the shipping package.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric. A couple questions for you. First one here is, does the shipping package replace an ERP system, or how does it interact with an ERP system?
Yeah, so I would definitely not say, as you can see, this is definitely a pretty simplified shipping implementation compared to something like an ERP system. The shipping package is, I would say, typically used in one of two scenarios, right? One is you don't have an ERP system, because some places just don't have an ERP system. And this can be like a lightweight way to still get that information of tracking where materials are actually going, and what customers are going to and all that fun stuff. The more common way we see this package get used is actually, though, as a front end for your ERP system. Again, it's kind of like when we talked about the inventory package a couple of videos ago, that where it's, yes, ERPs do the same thing, but sometimes you want to have all of your different functionality in a single pane of glass or a single system, so you have a similar look and feel of everything. And so you don't want to have them switch to the new ERP interface, right? So what this would actually do in those cases is we can also take and we could receive these shipping orders. So instead of creating them in the system here, I could be receiving shipping orders from the ERP system as they're getting like received. And then as they're getting completed, we would then backflush that inventory and then send the shipping order completions to the ERP. So we're kind of just serving as like an interface for actually providing the information. So either one's fine.
Awesome.
Both work.
Great. Another question here is, would this be used or integrated with track and trace in any way?
It can be. So I would say the shipping package, really it's 50-50 whether people use it with the track and trace package or not. The one that is used with track and trace a lot is kitting. So because kitting gets used to define, staged inventory that's going to be used in consumptions and travel along with the track and trace materials that you've defined. So that one gets used a lot with it. Again, the real benefit of having shipping with track and trace is that you're getting that full genealogy history along with, so you can say more than just like, oh yeah, this part went to this customer, but also, if the customer identifies an issue with it or something like that, right? Then you could look at a history of all the genealogy that happened against that material you shipped out. So it gives you like extra context. So
And kind of a follow-up to that is, can you show how we can track the genealogy information using this shipping information for a finished product
yeah,
that
so if
was returned? Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, so what you would do, so probably what you would do, so we actually don't have an out of the box report for that kind of stuff, but what we do have is, let me hop over here. So you can see through the shipping workstation here. So if I scan, I can see the actual materials that are being sent out. Now, these materials are actually not finished goods. So this is maybe a bad example of it. But I would be having the materials that are actually being sent out. But then I can go over here to our genealogy report. And through this screen, I can choose a specific serial. Maybe we'll choose one further down. That'll probably have more data. And I can see in here, as this loads, I would be able to see and hear all of the different genealogy data. So I could see the consumptions against it, and I can see the different materials. So this one only went through one station, it looks like, but I could see the actual parts that got consumed against it. I could see process data, and all that different extra miscellaneous data about it. This is maybe not a good example either because it hasn't went very far. But you can see this whole genealogy stuff. And what we have done for customers before is it's just a simple query to marry up that data and show it in like a grid report or whatever format you would need to best like expedite the process of how you handle those sort of returns.
Great. And then last question I have here. Oh, just kidding. We had another one come in. We'll answer this one first and then our last one. So with a company adopting this production tracking project, how does Flexware accommodate custom changes to match the customer's business?
Yeah, so SparkMES kind of takes a little bit of a different. So SparkMES is positioned as a framework for building out MES applications. Um, didn't really talk about in this. I know we have a video that talks more about this when we do an intro to SparkMES, but just to kind of give the high level of that, SparkMES is a framework that we hope is like a starter kit or a accelerator for building out MES applications. So what you're kind of seeing here is the stuff you get out of the box, day one sort of functionality. But we expect that there's going to be a level of customization on top of that to really match your needs. So, for example, right, the example was just given about the shipping report, right? Maybe there's a specific report or specific thing you need for how you handle, when something gets returned, right? Or maybe a traceability of the specific way you handshake with your equipment or a specific way you want like your execution screen to work, right? That the system doesn't account for out of the box. Um, what SparkMES is it's not a black box. It's giving you the tools needed to serve as that foundation. And when you need a customization for it, we would do that customization for your process, right? It wouldn't be like an update to the main system. It would be like a update specifically on your kind of branch of SparkMES, if that makes sense. So through this, we can really kind of allow us to have the system conform to your process, which is really our goal, and not have make your process have to conform to the system, if that makes sense. So
Great. Now, last question here is, are there any controls in either package around what is allowed to be shipped or kitted?
yeah, that's a good question. So for both kitting and shipping, there are some controls around what's allowed to be either put into a kit, which would then thus be consumed into a finished good, or that's allowed to be sent out the door. And most of those are around your inventory type. So this is typically only if you're really using the inventory package. But in the inventory package, we can add statuses. We could track the status of parts in inventory. Or I guess maybe for to an ERP, they can tell us the status. And this system does make sure that the parts that we're shipping or the parts that we're kitting are good parts. So when I was showing the lots, when you got that drop down of the lots, or the drop down of cereals, it was filtering to say to make sure that part's not on quality holder. It's not marked to be scrapped, or it's not, you know, on like MRB or whatever the term may be, right? On any status that's not quality hold. I mean, that's not like good to where go, right? So we do have that level of verification to make sure you're not shipping out bad material or anything like that. So, or consuming bad materials into your products, which is obviously something you don't want to have happen either. So,
Great. Looks like that's all of our questions. Eric, if you want to showcase the dashboard.
yeah, cool. So I did want to take just a second here. Now that we've kind of shown some of this demo, you've kind of seen that all of this was hosted in the same environment we've been using for all these demos. So I did want to give a huge shout out to 4IR, which is another customer. They supply hardware and they handle actually building out these environments, these virtual environments, or hosting your solution, your ignition solutions, or whatever your solutions may be. Managing your infrastructure as an enterprise especially can be very challenging and can be very time consuming, and especially managing it in such a way that it's reliable and you can get the insights into your environment. So 4IR helps out a lot with that and building out those sort of like infrastructures and managing that for you. And just to kind of show you a little bit, so everything you're seeing here is hosted by them. So it's all like, production ready, could be deployed on enterprise, all that fun stuff. But I think the coolest thing about what they give you is that it's not just hosting, but it's also the insights to make sure that the system's running well and that there's no like issues, and we can track down anything that's going on and getting notified ahead of time if there's like maybe your memory's running high or you're running out of disk space or something like that. So this dashboard is actually something they provide with like just having them host your stuff. And here I'm seeing like, I can see things like, hey, what are my, where's the one that I really like, what's my database throughput, right? Or how many database connections am I getting? There's a really cool one in here about like, hey, what are my projects that are causing me the most issues, which I didn't even know you could even track in Ignition. But all this cool stuff has been like super helpful and is super good for the different customers we work with to actually be able to manage their deployments and make sure their systems are always running smoothly. So just want to give a huge shout out. Thanks 4IR for hosting this and being great partners with the different customers we've worked with. Yeah. Thanks, Ellie.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Eric. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll give you some time back into your day. And thank you again for joining us. Hope you learned some good information about our shipping and kitting packages. If you're currently using Ignition and looking for a quick and cost-effective path to MES functionality, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly at ellie.allenbabe, or you can respond to that email I'll be sending you shortly with the recording of today's webinar. We can get you set up with a personalized demo, take you through any of our other packages, and just really show you all the good things that SparkMES can do. So feel free to reach out if that's something that you'd like to learn more about, or if you have any other questions. And then also, if you're looking for other ways that you can improve your operations, you can head over to flexwareinnovation.com/events, and there you'll find our full webinar schedule and some good topics that we have coming up that can help you really get a leg up on improving all of your different operations and streamlining everything you want to get going. So we'll have one coming up in March that'll be on agentic AI, and that'll be going through the solution that our team shared at the Prove It conference. And then we'll also have one on doing more with less and how to really maximize your assets. So again, head over to flexwareinnovation.com/events if you're interested in signing up for any of that. But with that, I'll say thank you again and have a great rest of your day.
Ready to start your Spark journey? Learn more about SparkMES at sparkmes.io.